Good morning. My name is Tony Gonzalez from Made in Metal, and today we are going to interview Ian Parry, who is celebrating 40 years of career. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing fine. It's a nice rainy afternoon in Holland. So as you can see, I'm in my what they call a digital audio workstation. I call it my little screaming room. And here's where this is my fabulous AKG mic that I do all my recordings with, which I've been using for years. It's my workhorse. So the new Brute Force Rock Emporium album I recorded with this. So this is where it all happens.
Now that you mention, you recently released an album called Brute Force, and something that caught my attention is that the name of the band is Rock Emporium II. And this makes me think that you are following the same structure than in Consortium, where each CD has a number. Is that right?
That's what I wasn't intending. I have to be honest. I wasn't intending to venture into doing a series of Rock Emporium albums. I just thought, well, okay, consortium project. That's something I did over 12 or 14 years, bringing musicians together all over the world, in America, in Europe, and I did Pentology, 5 albums. Got some great names working with me from Camelot and from Patrick Rondat, Jean-Michel Jarre Band, Vandenplas, Stefan Lil, Arian, that's my old colleague, Arian Lucassen. My Elegy colleagues, Arian and me played in Vengeance, so that the listeners know. So, and with Elegy, by the way, just a point of view, the last time I played in Spain was at the Rock Machina Fest in Valencia, and we were with Locomotive Music, Locomotive Records. They were based in Madrid, and we did the Principles of Pain album. I produced it for Elegy. They gave me the opportunity to produce it. That's what I wanted to do, go on into producing albums. That was my plan. And we worked in Madrid. So I've got a lot of connection with Spain over the years. Rock Emporium, the idea was to go back to my roots in music. In the 70s, 80s, as kids, we were starved on British television, on the BBC. They hardly ever played rock music, or heavy rock it was called at the time, before metal came. I always loved bands like Deep Purple. Zeppelin was a bit before my time, and I found it bit freaky as a young guy, but I still loved a lot of it. Song remains the same. The movie was in the cinemas when I was in my last year at school, but I never went to watch it, oddly enough. But it was going around the cinemas at the time. I wanted to touch on when we first saw bands like Rainbow and Whitesnake. And that was the idea, to go back to my roots, because it's 40 years now I've been doing hanging out in music. And it's been a long journey, and I've loved every minute of it. That was the idea. Consortium project was more progressive, symphonic rock metal, more Dream Theater, Queensryche, if you like, and not so much rock. It was more a progressive metal band. With Rock Emporium, I didn't want to do so much, very little progressive. It's only passages with Rock Emporium. It's more focused on 80s and 90s melodic rock, hard rock, neoclassical metal. I did the first one. I worked with my old colleagues from the past, like Baron Courbois. We worked together. He's in Blind Guardian. We worked together in a band called Perfect Strangers from Holland. We did one album, came out in Japan back in the day, and Baron went on to do bigger and better things. Then he joined my old band, Vengeance. Then he joined the last few years. He's been touring the world with Blind Guardian. And Timo Somers, his father was the original guitar player, one of them with Arian in one of the earlier guitar players, should I say. So that's why it was important for me to keep these guys working with the next installment of Rock Emporium on Brute Force. And that's basically what the whole idea is about. I'm not sure if I can do any more albums, to be honest with you, for the simple reason it costs a hell of a lot of money to get these productions together. Most artists and producers like myself finance it ourselves, including the artwork. We make our own layouts, artwork, everything else. My colleague Jeroen from the Veal is the keyboard player. He does all the layouts for me. He did the same. He co-wrote songs and made the album sleeve for my last solo album last year, In Flagrante Delicto, also released through Metal Mind Productions. That's why I'm doing this new second Brute Force Rock Emporium with Metal Mind.
But I hope that maybe in 2 or 3 years you change your mind and have another Rock Emporium. Yes, it's depending. I know that it's very expensive. And let me tell you that we pay attention to your CD because we are Lucas Celito's friend, the guitar player. He sent me a message and say, I'm involved in Rock Emporium and please connect with Ian Parry and interview him. Tell me, how did you involve him in the recording process?
The amazing thing is, last year I just released in 2020, February 2020, my 5th solo album. And it had been something like 12 years. I wanted to make a statement on a solo album, and I wrote a song like the title track, In Flagrante Delicto, is about toxic waste, plastic, what we're doing to the planet. Apparently, when last year I celebrated my 60th birthday in 2020, this year makes it 40 years since my first professional band, 1981 with Zach Starkey, Ringo Starr's son, in Mono Pacific. Went from Liverpool to London, got the job, did an audition. So many famous people, McCartney, everybody else connected. Recorded the first time in the studio with, in John Lennon's old recording studio, his home, which Ringo bought. Behind the microphone, didn't realise until a few years ago when I saw it in a documentary on TV that I was recording with John Lennon's microphone, which he used for his famous hit Imagine, and also Whitesnake, Come and Get It. So I've been really fortunate to have started when I started. I didn't get a big #1 hit, never mind, but I've had a great opportunity to travel the world. I'm not really sad if this is my last album, because I still managed to to work with great people like Luca Celito, who had invited me to work on his solo album, The Voice Within. And he sent an email when I was celebrating my 60th birthday, and I had 200 birthday messages. So I'd been in the studio, in and out of the studio, recording In Flagrante Delicto at the same time that he wanted to do his solo album in 2019. Luca, I apologized straight away. The album is already finished and it's come out. He said, I'll send it to you. So he sent me his The Voice Within album. I've never heard Luca before, and I absolutely loved it. He's this young, modern guy who appreciates all the old school music, and he has his own style, but he also has the flair from the classics like Malmsteen. But even in the hard rock scene, he goes back with many famous guitarists. He developed his own style as well, and he teaches guitar, which is really amazing. And now he's a professor. So Luca, when he said, I'll send you the track, so he sent me his album, and I'm sitting there and I thought, my God, this guy's incredible. And something hit me when I heard his ballad, Tearful Goodbye, and I wrote this lyric, and I'd started recording it. It was about them. I called it Fairy Tale. And to my amazement, that my voice that I'd recorded fitted. It was in the same key as Luca's music, and that's how the whole thing was born.
Now that you are talking about it, I know that the promo talks about the Queen's version of One Vision, but Ian, I would prefer to talk about another songs that I like it a lot, because I enjoy this CD a lot, and a very interesting song. The first song that I discovered that it was completely different is My Confession, because I felt that it's a mix of jazz and metal, and if you imagine this introduction without distortion, it could be simple, smooth jazz. And it's not the only moment, because the drums part before the last guitar solo, and even the guitar solo is very jazzy. So, and when I start listening to this record, I never imagined to discover a song like My Confession. Please, can you tell me something about this song?
I always try to find material which can give a little bit of a different atmosphere to an album. In the past, I worked with Crystal Tears from Greece. The guitar player's name is Dimitri Gutiermanis, and Dimitri wrote songs with me back in 2012 for the debut Rock Emporium album Society of Friends. And I wanted to work with Dimitri again because, in my opinion, incredibly talented guitar player, fabulous songwriter, has also somebody who's been underestimated for his abilities as a songwriter and a guitar player. Dimitri is also a wonderful person, and I give 100% credit to Dimitri for the songwriting of My Confession, and I based the lyrics on his situation and the people of Greece going through the hardships that they have, being very proud people, but not being able to find how to say to your wife and kids, I'm sorry, I feel ashamed, but I've got no money and I can't find any work. And my father and mother went through the same thing back in Liverpool back in the 50s and 60s. My dad was struggling like hell to find work. That meant a hell of a lot to me when I saw the struggle of and Crystal Tears and the Greek people, and I wanted to do that also as a tribute. So I based the lyric on the hardships that my friends and colleagues were going through and still are going through, even as we're talking now today. I find in many ways the European Union as an institution a little bit shameful, to be honest, because I see politicians as being the only ones that seem to be benefiting from this. All these politicians knowing that they've got a cushion, a buffer for when it goes wrong for them in their political careers, they can just spring over to the Union and they've got it made with their apartments in Brussels. And I see countries like Greece and Spain, people struggling, having really hard lives. So I think it was the best thing that ever happened was the Brexit. And I think it's time that we as human beings all wake up to the fact that we don't need an institution like the EU. We can't even elect these people, these European commissioners who make the laws that we have to live by. So you can have a working together thing. That was the idea that Winston Churchill created, this concept. He brought the countries together after the Second World War in the late 40s, the Union of Europe, to work together economically. That was his dream. So people should research that Google it and they'll find out more. But now that's not a dream anymore, which can remain a reality. I want to bring to light now that where do we draw the line? How much does the pressure have to go on the people financially? And just maybe make a few more people wake up and realize, hey, is this really such a good thing? Because you never see it on television, man. I am sure if we're sensible, I think if you stop pumping millions to the European Union so they can have a cushy job, if you stop wasting that money, spend it on Spain, I believe, like Britain now is going to spend that money on the infrastructure of the UK for schools and hospitals. I think politicians should work for free. It should be charity work. I'd do that for free. If I felt that it would benefit people in Europe, politicians don't need to be paid. There is enough room for it to be free. So that was the whole thing with My Confession, and to bring light on this situation we're in.
I agree with you. And now that you told me this, I'm going to change the question, because another song that likes me a lot is Dream World. That is totally different than My Confession. Maybe the concept even is jazzy again. The bass is really good, the drums is very interesting. Yes, but now, do you think that are we going to get a dream world or something like that?
The bass, you mentioned about the bass, that
Yes.
was from Beth Amy Heavenstone.
No, don't
And,
tell me.
and,
No,
and I went
unbelievable.
on tour in 2018 with Graham Bonnet, and Graham Bonnet was one of my favourite singers of all time, together with Paul Rodgers from Free Bad Company and David Coverdale. And Graham Bonnet, I saw him in 1980, the nicest man in the world, and he came on stage after Saxon supported Rainbow. Biff with his, at the time, the singer, Wheels of Steel, great. Biff with his glam rock trousers, shiny silver, with his testicles sticking out. And there comes Graham Bonnet. At first, Richie Blackmore, all black, sinister, dark. Yeah. And then Graham Bonnet walks out with sunglasses and a Hawaiian t-shirt. When I heard a woman bass player, there are women bass players, like with David Bowie, you had the female bass player who's famous and she's extremely talented. But in the rock world, you had girls' school, but I've never met a multi-talented female bass player before, and toured. And that was Graham Bonnet's partner. Beth is amazing. And I actually wanted Graham also to sing, but he was busy with Alcatraz and a new Graham Bonnet band. And the song was written by Walter Ciancusi and Dario Parente from Headless. Enrico Ciancusi was already had recorded the drum track so that they could send me the music with a drum track, so I knew how the song was going to sound. I loved the drums so much that I said, hey, would your brother, if I pay all my musicians, because I think it's only fair. If you do a day's work, you should get paid. I hate having to wait for money. I pay all my musicians. The guy said, oh man, we'd love to do this. And hopefully if it sells, they'll earn a bit of money from songwriting. But Enrico, Walter and Dario, I toured with them. They're from Headless, but they're also Jeff Tate's touring band now, which is amazing. The guys said, we don't have, they did a guide bass for me, but we don't really have a bass guitar. So I said, no problem. I'll ask Beth to see if she would like to do a guest on Dreamworld. And that's how it went. And Beth said, I'd love to, man. Great American accent. Oh, man, you're sure, Ian, I want to help you out, really. So I've been fortunate that with this album, when COVID went on tour, a lot of my colleagues, most of them can record at home, like me, with home studios, digital audio workstations, they call them, but it's a home studio. I call this my screaming room. Yeah! I can scream my nuts off and nobody hears me. And my colleagues, they all jumped at the chance. When we went in lockdown, they said, yeah, man, this is great, positive, want to work on songs with you, co-wrote, whatever, appeared as guests. And Beth was one of them. Dreamworld turned out to be a fabulous song. And it was a kind of, a dream where everything's perfect. There are no problems. Why can't it be that way? How's the future going to be? Why can't we make it a great world? Maybe you can say it's a little bit naive. Maybe, I guess I'm still a bit naive, but I'm not afraid to admit it. But I don't see it as being a problem. I see that problems can be solved. Why not have a great life for everybody, where there's no division between rich and poor, where everybody, if you want to go on holiday, you don't have to worry about how you're going to pay for it. You can go. Why should all the mass money go to just certain individuals? I guess you could say, everybody in films, you see these people going into virtual worlds where they lose themselves in virtual worlds. Well, I'd rather have a real world scenario than a virtual world.
Tell me, now that you have a new CD, do you have plans in terms of concert, tours, something?
The thing is, it's all economics with live. I have a promoter in Holland who's booking several shows. My tour, now we're going to move them to March 2022. So if there's anyone listening, I would love to get some shows also going in Spain. I believe that Luca has I think he's already played in Spain, if I'm not mistaken, but
Yes.
Luca Solito's setting up shows for us. 2 shows already in October 2021 in Italy. So it would be cool if we could also do some in Spain, if it can't happen this year because of in 2020. So if anyone's watching, www.ianparry.com, they can send me an email through my .com, and I'd love to come back to Spain. It would be fabulous if there would be a possibility to also combine shows in Spain again. That would be great. Thanks goes to the fans and you two men for supporting our music.
And
thanks, Tony.
You, Ian Parry, for your music. Please be safe, take care, and I hope to see you maybe next year.
Okay, stay safe.
Bye bye.
Gracias. Gracias. Muchas gracias.
A ti.